One day in the Irish Sea, a fisherman named Syracuse was fishing. As he was about to lift his fishing net, he was startled to find a woman inside. He quickly pulled it out and gave the woman CPR.
Anybody out there?
She finally regained consciousness, not realizing she was still alive. Syracuse then planned to call for help, but the woman refused to see anyone.
Come on, are you cold? Out.
Syracuse took the woman to his deceased mother's empty house and left her.
I'm taking you to a hospital. I have a card on the shore. You lost your memory in the water? On and off. She was kind of low.
Thank you.
Syracuse then returned to the home of his ex-wife Maura. He came to be with his daughter, Annie. Annie suffered from kidney failure and required regular dialysis. While waiting, Syracuse told a story about a fisherman who found a beautiful woman in his net.
Same as usual, an hour and a half or so.
Not at all.
No, just missed him.
After therapy, Annie was delighted to be given an electric wheelchair from the hospital. Syracuse took Annie back to Maura's house and met her boyfriend, Alex.
What's the word?
Compatibility.
Oh, you understand what that means?
No. I see.
The next day, as Syracuse was about to set sail, he again met the woman he had helped the day before. This nameless woman wanted to join her fishing. They ended up going out to sea together. Syracuse asked her name again, and she replied that her name was Ondine. Syracuse fished for a while, but caught nothing as his lobster traps were empty. Ondine suddenly sang a beautiful song, which could be heard across the ocean. Syracuse was surprised to find he had caught many large lobsters. After Ondine sang, Syracuse still couldn't believe that Ondine's singing had brought him good luck.
Come down here. My God.
What?
Syracuse then invited Ondine to town to sell their catch, but Ondine refused, refusing to see anyone but Syracuse.
No.
They were already off. We'll get €10 a pound.
They said there's no lobster left.
You want me to try it?
Having earned a large sum of money, Syracuse went to a clothing store to give Ondine a gift. Afterward, Syracuse picked up Annie from school. On the way, Annie asked Syracuse to tell her the rest of the story, believing the woman in the story to be a selkie. Selkie are mythological creatures resembling seals that can transform into beautiful human forms.
I go to school?
And I didn't.
No.
Upon arriving at Maura's house, Syracuse immediately excused himself and hurried to Ondine's house. However, curious to see if her father's story was more than just a story, Annie followed her father's car in her wheelchair. Syracuse brought food and clothes to Ondine. Ondine was very grateful and gave Syracuse a gentle kiss. Syracuse was delighted with Ondine's kiss and then left.
On you.
Suspecting her father was hiding something, Annie went to the library and borrowed a book about the legend of the Selkies. Meanwhile, Syracuse went to church to meet the priest and tell him about Ondine.
What do you want to say?
Prescription.
This is where they all clap.
The next day, Annie returned to her late grandmother's house and saw Ondine swimming. As she emerged from the water, Ondine saw a small child in front of her. They chatted and got to know each other, and Annie even assumed Ondine was a Selkie. Ondine was stunned by Annie's explanation.
Yes. Do you have magic powers?
Annie explained that the reason Ondine was stranded on land was because she had lost her seal cloak. After telling her story, Annie said goodbye and went home. Ondine didn't forget to kiss Annie on the cheek. One afternoon, an unknown man appeared to be looking for something. The next day, Ondine, who was sunbathing, was approached by Syracuse, who invited her to go out to sea. Ondine helped hold the helm of Syracuse's boat. However, suddenly, a marine police officer passed by their boat. Ondine was terrified and immediately hid, but she continued to steer the boat with her feet. Her firm thighs made Syracuse want to dance. Ondine sang the same beautiful song as yesterday, and Syracuse was shocked to see his net filled with fish. There were even rice paddy eels, which are supposed to only be found in rice paddies. The marine police approached their boat, suspicious that Syracuse was fishing using a trawl. The guards were confused, as Syracuse could catch rice paddy eels in the middle of the sea. They then inspected the boat's warehouse and were surprised to see the very beautiful Ondine there. After hearing Ondine's beautiful explanation, they believed her and immediately left. Syracuse then invited Ondine to go to town to sell their catch.
I've been seen.
Bored to see the city, Ondine agreed to go with Syracuse to town. On their way to town, an unknown man was surprised to see Ondine. And when they arrived at town, the other fishermen were amazed by Ondine's beauty. After earning a large sum from their catch, Ondine and Syracuse invited Ani to go with them to a clothing store. While they were choosing clothes, the women there were excited by Ondine's beauty.
The well-dressed kind.
That's what I found out.
What are you doing?
Buying clothes?
The next day, Ani secretly met Ondine. Knowing Ani couldn't swim, Ondine taught her how to swim. However, once in the water, Ondine panicked when she saw something. Ondine dived to retrieve the item, shocking both of them. Annie explained that it was Ondine's seal coat. Ani asked Odin to bury it underground so Ondine could live another 7 years on land. Ondine then invited Ani to bury her seal coat in her late grandmother's flower garden. Ondine asked Ani to keep her seal coat a secret. Afterward, Syracuse took Ondine and Ani to a festival in town. On the ship, Ani told her father the story of the Selkie and asked Ondine to admit her identity as a Selkie. But Ondine, of course, denied it.
And the last thing is that she can
During the
make a wish
festival, an unknown man was seen searching for Ondine. Ani was up to her old tricks again, this time demanding proof that Ondine wasn't a Selkie. Ani rode her wheelchair fast and deliberately fell into the sea. Ondine immediately jumped to save Ani. Syracuse panicked, but Annie claimed that Ondine could breathe underwater. Ondine didn't expect Ani to be so reckless. Syracuse then drove Ani home to Mora's house, and then took Ondine back to her late mother's house. There, Syracuse recounted his dark past as an alcoholic, which had prevented him from receiving custody of his children. However, since Annie's illness, Syracuse had changed. Finally, unable to resist Ondine's beauty and physicality, Syracuse made the mistake of forcibly criticizing this beautiful sealman. Unexpectedly, Ondine, who had previously resisted, now attacked Syracuse, resulting in sexual reproduction.
For you.
The next day, Syracuse returned to the priest and continued his story. He said he was terrified of losing Ondine.
And I don't suppose you want... she looked pretty real to me.
Afterward, Syracuse accompanied Annie to dialysis therapy. When he took Annie to Mora's house, it was empty. They immediately met Mora at the bar she usually frequented with Alex. Syracuse begged Annie to stay with him, even if only for one night. However, Mora flatly refused. Mora sent Syracuse home to meet his new girlfriend.
You and your time, huh?
She's coming to my place.
A good thing, yeah.
While Ondine was sleeping, a car suddenly approached. Ondine hurried to hide. It turned out that the unknown man had discovered Ondine's location and was planning to capture her. When Syracuse arrived at Ondine's house, he was shocked to find her house in complete disarray. Syracuse immediately searched for Ondine and found him sitting by the river. Ondine told Syracuse that her husband had come to pick her up. Syracuse was shocked to discover that Ondine already had a husband. Syracuse, beginning to believe the Selkie story, then asked Ondine to make a wish for her husband to leave. However, Ondine instead made a wish for Annie to be healed.
One for you.
Unable to find Ondine, the unknown man searched the city and accidentally hit Maura, Alex, and Annie, who were on their way home. Luckily, Annie was wearing a seatbelt and survived. Alex, however, died on the spot because he wasn't wearing a seatbelt. Elsewhere, Syracuse took Ondine to the city. However, on the way, Syracuse saw a car accident and panicked when he learned that the car belonged to Maura. Luckily, Annie survived, but the doctor informed Syracuse that Annie's kidney needed an immediate transplant.
Maybe it's all in the...
Unexpectedly, it turned out that Alex had a donor card and had kidney tissue that matched Annie's. Ondine eventually met the unknown man who was also being treated for an accident.
I'm over to another room. Do you want to follow me?
You wore your seatbelt, love.
Ondine met him, and the man asked her to come home with him. However, Ondine didn't want his life to be disrupted by him. The operation went well, and Annie recovered from her kidney failure. Syracuse couldn't believe Ondine's wish would come true. The next day, Syracuse accompanied Maura in scattering Alex's ashes into the sea. Maura now allowed Syracuse to take Annie to live with her, on the condition that Ondine not be with him.
Sad.
With a wife and 3 children in Scotland. But I don't want that woman there.
How was I?
Just for once.
Syracuse went to meet Odin on the fishing boat, drunk. He took Ondine to the lighthouse island where seals usually congregated. Syracuse intentionally left Ondine alone there, believing humans and Selkies couldn't coexist.
There! You can sing your song! Never knew this Selkie stuff. Means what you're doing.
As night fell, Ondine took off her coat and shoes to swim away from the island. Annie, who lived with Syracuse, accidentally changed the TV channel. It featured a figure singing the same song Ondine had once sung. Realizing that Ondine wasn't a Selkie, Syracuse immediately went to Lighthouse Island to look for her.
Annie, I had to go out for a bit.
Syracuse eventually found Ondine, who was freezing on the other side of the island. He approached her and warmed her up. Syracuse asked Ondine to tell him who she was. It turned out that Ondine was a drug dealer who was trapped at sea while carrying a kilo of her coins with her partner. Surrounded by authorities and unable to swim, Syracuse told Ondine to dive with the her coins. Although Ondine was a skilled swimmer, she eventually drowned from exhaustion. Ondine felt like she was going to die. However, a fishing net suddenly caught her, and Syracuse saved her.
So he made me take to the water.
After learning the truth, Syracuse took Ondine home with him. However, Ondine's partner was already at Syracuse's house. Syracuse was helpless, while Ondine's partner begged him to return her belongings. To protect Annie and Syracuse, Ondine revealed the location of her seal cloak, which turned out to contain the illicit goods. However, the goods were no longer there. It turned out that Annie had moved them, still believing in the Selkie myth. After Ondine promised not to leave them, Annie finally revealed her illicit goods, which Annie had moved into a lobster trap. While trying to lift the lobster trap, Ondine pushed her partner down, knowing she couldn't swim.
He's not a Selkie, is he?
Meanwhile, Syracuse managed to subdue his other partner, leading the police to arrest the surviving dealers, including Ondine.
Our solicitor says she'll get deported.
The next day, Syracuse went to the priest and told him that Ondine would be deported from Ireland. However, this would not apply if Ondine became an Irish citizen. Syracuse asked the priest to marry him so that she could remain there. At the end of the film, Ani, Ondine, and Syracuse finally lived happily together. Ani was released for telling the truth and helping the authorities find the illicit goods.